The wolves stopped howling. The forest became so silent that even death seemed afraid to breathe. Somewhere beneath the ancient pines, a dying alpha king heard the soft footsteps of a child instead of the soldiers who had come to finish him. King Orion Ashenfang forced one eye open. Blood soaked the leaves beneath him. His sword had snapped during the diplomatic ambush less than an hour earlier. Every royal guard who had accompanied him had either fallen or vanished into the darkness. The assassins believed no wounded man could survive the cursed forest before sunrise. They were wrong. A little girl stepped through the mist carrying a basket of wild herbs. Her silver eyes widened. "You are still alive." Orion tried to speak. Only blood escaped his lips. The poison spreading through his body left him barely conscious. Within 1 hour, the venom would reach his heart. If no healer removed it before moonrise, the Alpha King of the Northern Moon Kingdom would die alone beneath forgotten trees, and every treaty he had traveled to protect would collapse into civil war. Before you discover why the little girl who saved the king carried the very same silver eyes he had seen in his own reflection since childhood, remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us where you are listening from today. Your support helps these stories reach everyone who still believes love can survive even the greatest mistake. Now let us return to the forest, where destiny quietly began its second chance. The child looked around carefully. The assassins were gone. Without hesitation, she slipped beneath Orion's arm. "You are heavy," she whispered with determined honesty. "But Mother says no one gets left behind." Step by step, she dragged the dying king toward a hidden cottage deep within the ancient forest. He never saw the faded wooden sign hanging beside its gate. Willow Sanctuary, the place where the fated mate he had rejected had been waiting for him without ever expecting him to return. Long before the wounded Alpha King crossed the gate of Willow Sanctuary, Ilara Willowmere had learned that heartbreak could become a home if it was carried long enough. The villagers called her a healer. The orphaned wolf children called her mother. She answered to both with the same quiet smile. Every morning before sunrise, she gathered medicinal herbs along the riverbanks while the forest still rested beneath silver mist. Dew clung to every leaf, and birds welcomed another peaceful dawn. She treasured those brief moments. The forest never judged her. The trees never whispered about the Alpha King who had rejected her before an entire kingdom. The wind never asked why she had disappeared without demanding justice. Years earlier, the rejection had shattered far more than her heart. The ancient mate bond had not broken completely. Instead, it remained like a scar beneath her soul, sometimes warm, sometimes unbearably cold. There were nights when she awakened, because she could feel Orion somewhere beneath the same moon. She never hated him. She simply prayed he would someday learn the truth. Inside Willow Sanctuary, 23 orphaned wolf children were already awake. Some came from kingdoms destroyed by border wars. Some had escaped trafficking rings that sold young wolf shifters into slavery. Others remembered nothing except fear. Every child carried invisible wounds. Every child found the same welcome: a warm meal, a clean bed, a gentle voice, and a promise. "You are safe here." The oldest boy, Daniel, helped chop firewood before breakfast. Twin sisters Nora and Iris carefully prepared fresh bread beside the outdoor stone oven. Little Rowan insisted on feeding every injured bird before eating himself. Kindness had become the first lesson taught inside the sanctuary, not because Ilara demanded it, because the children had watched her live it every single day. Resources were always scarce. Medicinal herbs often mattered more than food. Winter blankets had been sewn from worn clothing donated by distant villages whenever supplies became dangerously low. Elara quietly traveled to neighboring towns, offering her healing skills in exchange for flour, vegetables, or simple cloth. She never accepted gold. Gold attracted questions. Questions attracted soldiers. Soldiers attracted the people she had spent years hiding from. Only one person knew the sanctuary's true history: old Miriam, the elderly midwife who had rescued Elara after the terrible rejection years ago. Every evening, she watched the younger children playing beneath the ancient willow tree, growing at the center of the sanctuary. "You built something beautiful." Elara smiled softly. "They built it." "You simply gave them permission to believe they deserved love." The old woman shook her head. "No. You taught them something even rarer." "What?" "That kindness survives betrayal." Elara lowered her eyes. Some wounds still hurt too deeply to describe. Across the yard, 8-year-old Lyra chased 2 laughing boys through patches of wildflowers. Unlike most children, she never feared climbing the tallest trees or wandering farther into the forest than anyone else dared. She possessed an unusual confidence, almost instinctive. When frightened younger children cried during thunderstorms, Lyra always held their hands. When strangers approached the sanctuary, she quietly placed herself between them and the smaller children without ever being asked. Old Miriam noticed it often. "The Alpha lives inside her," Elara answered gently. "So does compassion. Came from you." Lyra suddenly ran toward the cottage carrying a bundle of freshly picked lavender. "Mother, I found enough for 3 more medicine jars." Elara kissed her forehead. "You always find exactly what we need," Lyra laughed. "The forest helps." Perhaps it truly did. Animals trusted her in ways no one could explain. Foxes approached without fear. Birds landed upon her shoulders. Even injured wolves willingly allowed the little girl to clean their wounds. The children joked that the moon goddess whispered directions into Lyra's ears. Elara always smiled without answering. Deep inside, she wondered the same thing. That afternoon, after the younger children finished their lessons, Elara entered a small stone room hidden beneath the oldest cottage. The chamber contained no treasure, only memories, ancient books, pressed herbs, medical journals, and one weathered stone tablet leaning quietly against the far wall. Most visitors would have mistaken it for an ordinary monument. It was not. Its surface carried symbols so old that few scholars could still read them. Old Miriam had translated only one passage decades earlier. Elara gently brushed away a layer of dust. The inscription shimmered faintly beneath the afternoon light. "When the rejected moon returns through the child born of mercy rather than vengeance, the first bond shall awaken, and the kingdom that chose fear shall be healed by the one it abandoned." She had read those words countless times. They frightened her every time. Not because she doubted the prophecy, because she feared Orion would never live long enough to hear it. She quietly placed fresh flowers beneath the stone. "I hope you found peace." She did not know whether she was speaking to the moon goddess or to the man who had unknowingly broken both their futures. Outside, Lyra suddenly appeared in the doorway. Her face had lost all color. "Mother, what happened?" "There is someone in the forest." Elara immediately stood. "A hunter? I do not think so." "Then who?" Lyra hesitated. "A man. He is hurt very badly." Old Miriam looked toward the child. "Did you leave him?" Lyra shook her head. "I could not. He would have died." The elderly midwife closed her eyes. "So, it has finally begun." Elara frowned. "What has?" Instead of answering, old Miriam slowly walked toward the entrance. Then she saw him. A tall man lay unconscious across the wooden bed Lyra had dragged into the cottage. His royal armor had been cut apart to reach the poisoned wound beneath. His breathing was shallow, his face was pale from blood loss. Yet even after all those years, Ilara recognized him instantly. Alpha King Orion Ashenfang, the man who had rejected his fated mate, the father who had never known his daughter. Outside, hidden among the trees beyond the sanctuary, 3 cloaked figures silently observed the cottage. Each wore the crimson fang emblem burned into black leather armor. One assassin quietly smiled. The king survived. Another slowly drew a poisoned arrow. Good. Now we eliminate the entire family. Pain returned before memory, not the sharp pain of poisoned steel, a slower ache, deep, relentless, as though every bone inside Orion's body had been stitched together beneath moonlight instead of a surgeon's hands. He opened his eyes. A wooden ceiling greeted him. Morning sunlight filtered gently through linen curtains. The scent of fresh herbs lingered in the air. Lavender, white cedar, wild rosemary, then something else. A fragrance so familiar that his soul reacted before his mind could understand it. Moonflowers after rain, his breathing caught. The ancient bond buried beneath years of guilt suddenly stirred. Warmth spread through his chest. Electric currents raced beneath his skin. Every heartbeat became heavier, stronger. His wolf awakened with a deep, instinctive purr that vibrated through his entire body. Mate, the single word echoed inside his consciousness. Impossible. He had not felt that call since the day he rejected the frightened village healer, standing alone before the royal council. He had spent years convincing himself the moon goddess had remained silent. Now he realized she never had. Someone quietly entered the room carrying a bowl of steaming medicine, Ilara. She stopped when she noticed his eyes were open. You should not be awake yet. Her voice remained calm, gentle, as though she were speaking to any ordinary patient, not the man who had broken her heart. Orion tried to sit upright. Pain shot through his ribs. She immediately set the medicine aside. Please, do not move. The poison nearly reached your heart. He looked at the fresh bandages wrapped carefully across his chest. You saved me. She hesitated. My daughter saved you. I only finished what she began. Silence settled between them. Neither knew where to begin. Years of unanswered questions stood quietly inside the little cottage. Orion finally whispered, I searched for you. Ilara lowered her eyes. No. You searched for the woman you believed carried a curse. Not the woman I became. His shoulders fell. I believed a lie. I know. You knew? Elder Morcant came to my village before the mate ceremony. Her words surprised him. He warned me. What did he say? That the king would reject me because my bloodline would destroy the kingdom. Orion stared in disbelief. He told me exactly the opposite. Both understood at the same moment. Someone had carefully separated them long before fate ever had the chance to unite them. Outside, children's laughter drifted through the open window. Orion turned toward the sound. Several young wolf children played beside a shallow stream. Others carried baskets of vegetables toward a small garden. No guards, no servants, only family. You built all this? Ilara smiled softly. They built each other. I simply refused to let abandoned children believe they had been abandoned by the moon. Orion watched quietly. The sanctuary carried no fear, only peace. Then the little girl from the forest burst through the doorway. Mother. I caught another rabbit. She stopped suddenly after noticing Orion awake. Her silver eyes met his. Time seemed to freeze. His own eyes, his own shape, his own expression. reflected perfectly inside a child. Lyra approached without hesitation. "Does your side still hurt?" He nodded slowly. "A little." She handed him the rabbit proudly. "I promised you breakfast." He almost laughed. No court etiquette, no fear, only innocent certainty. "Thank you," she smiled. "You are welcome." As she reached across the bed to place the rabbit beside the fireplace, her sleeve slipped backward. A small birthmark became visible upon her wrist, a silver crescent embraced by the outline of a wolf. Orion stopped breathing. Every alpha child born into the Ashenfang bloodline carried that mark. No exception had ever existed in 400 years. His pulse thundered. Electric warmth exploded through the mate bond again. The purr inside his chest became impossible to suppress. Lyra looked up curiously. "Your chest makes funny noises," Ilara immediately understood. Her own heart began racing. Peld Miriam quietly appeared in the doorway. She had been waiting for this moment for years. "There is no reason to hide any longer." Orion slowly looked toward Ilara. His voice barely escaped. "How old is she?" 8. The answer struck harder than any blade. 8 years, 8 birthdays, 8 winters, 8 summers. Gone. He had missed every one. He looked back toward the child. "What is your name?" She smiled brightly. "Lyra." "My mother says names should always sound like hope." He swallowed painfully. "They should." Lyra tilted her head. "You look sad." "I am." "Why?" He searched desperately for an answer simple enough for a child. "Because I think I have lost many things." She considered that carefully, then climbed onto the edge of the bed. "My mother says lost things can still come home." The words shattered him. He lowered his head. For the first time since becoming king, Alpha King Orion Ashenfang cried. Not loudly, not dramatically, only quiet tears that fell onto weathered blankets. Ilara watched silently. She had imagined this moment countless times. She expected anger, regret, excuses. Instead, she saw grief, real, unprotected, human. She stepped closer. Not because the mate bond demanded it, because compassion always had. She gently placed one hand over his. The instant their skin touched, silver light blossomed around their joined hands. Not violent, not blinding, warm, living. The cottage itself seemed to breathe. Outside, every wolf in the sanctuary lifted its head. Birds suddenly fell silent. The willow tree at the center of the refuge shimmered beneath invisible moonlight, despite the bright afternoon sun. Old Miriam whispered a prayer. The first bond. It has awakened. Far beyond the sanctuary, inside the capital, Elder Morcant dropped the goblet from his hand. The ancient moon compass resting upon his desk suddenly spun by itself before pointing toward the western forest. His face drained of color. "It is too late." Lord Kalen entered the chamber. "What happened?" Morcant answered without looking away from the glowing compass. "The Alpha found his true mate. And worse, he has already met the child." Kalen's expression darkened. "Then send every hunter. No witnesses, no survivors, no second chances. Deep within the mountains surrounding Willow Sanctuary. Hidden horns echoed through forgotten valleys. The Brotherhood of the Crimson Fang had begun the hunt. The hunting horns echoed once, then again, then a third time. Every bird abandoned the trees. Every wolf inside Willow Sanctuary lifted its head toward the northern ridge. Silence followed, the dangerous kind, the kind that always arrived a heartbeat before bloodshed. Old Miriam slowly closed the cottage shutters. They found us, captainless, hidden, peaceful. For 8 years, the sanctuary had escaped every kingdom. Today, its luck ended. Orion rose from the bed. Pain tore through the healing wound beneath his bandages. His legs nearly failed him. Ilara immediately reached for his arm. "You cannot fight. I have to. You almost died yesterday. And if I stay here, they will kill everyone you spent years protecting." Outside, Lyra stood among the younger children. She noticed the fear spreading across the adults. "Mother!" Ilara knelt before her. "I need you to help Daniel." "What about you? I will always find my way back." Lyra nodded bravely. She had learned long ago that courage sometimes meant obeying instead of arguing. Daniel gathered the older children, just as they had practiced. No screaming, no panic. The smallest children were carried first. The sanctuary had prepared for danger many times. They had simply prayed they would never need the plan. Across the meadow, black figures emerged between the ancient pines. 1.5 and 20, then dozens. Members of the Brotherhood of the Crimson Fang stepped silently into the clearing. Every hunter wore black leather armor marked with a crimson wolf fang. Each carried enchanted bows and silver-forged blades. Their commander removed his hood. A scar crossed both cheeks. His amber eyes settled upon Lyra. There she is, the Alpha Child. Ilara stepped forward before anyone else. "You came for a child. We came for the future. There is no difference." "There is every difference." The commander smiled coldly. "The child carries the blood of 2 royal bloodlines. If she lives, the kingdoms unite. If she dies, they destroy each other." Lord Kalen had planned every outcome. Civil war required only one small spark. Lyra was that spark. Orion walked into the open. Every hunter recognized him immediately. "The king," one assassin whispered. "He survived." Orion's silver eyes blazed. "You want the child. You go through me." The commander laughed. "You can barely stand." "Perhaps." Orion slowly drew the sword old Miriam had recovered beside the river. Its edge reflected silver sunlight. "But I can still fight." The first arrow flew. Orion turned. Steel flashed. The arrow split cleanly in half. The second volley followed. Then the third. Every projectile met the same fate. Behind him, Ilara guided frightened children toward hidden tunnels beneath the sanctuary. "No running. Stay together. Hold hands," little Rowan began crying. Lyra took his hand. "It will be all right." "How do you know?" "Because—" She looked toward Orion. "My father came back." The words stopped Ilara where she stood. Father. Lyra had never spoken that word before. Orion heard it too. Something inside him broke, and something stronger was born. The Brotherhood charged. The peaceful meadow exploded into chaos. Hunters rushed from every direction. Orion met them head-on. One strike, a blade spun into the grass. Another attacker lunged. Orion sidestepped. The hunter crashed harmlessly into a fallen log. A third raised an enchanted spear. Before it reached the king, Captain Rowan appeared. His sword intercepted the weapon with a ringing clash. Orion stared. "Rowan?" The captain smiled, despite blood on his cheek. "You did not think I would stop looking for my king." Behind him emerged nearly 50 royal guards. Mud covered their armor. Several carried fresh wounds. Every one of them had tracked Orion through the cursed forest. They had never abandoned him. The sanctuary suddenly stood between 2 armies. The Brotherhood attacked. The Royal Guard answered. Steel rang across the valley. Magic burst like silver lightning through the trees. Above them, Storm clouds gathered without warning. Old Miriam looked toward the darkening sky. It is beginning. Elara frowned. What is? The moon recognizes the child. A deafening crack shook the forest. Not thunder, the mountain itself. Ancient stone split apart near the sanctuary. Silver light poured upward from deep beneath the earth. The ground trembled. Every wolf in the forest immediately knelt. Even the wild wolves, even those who feared humans. One by one, they bowed toward Lyra. The little girl looked around in confusion. I did not do anything, old Miriam whispered through tears. No, you were simply born. The silver light reached Lyra. It did not burn. It wrapped gently around her like moonlit silk. A tiny crescent-shaped mark appeared upon her forehead before fading again. Every hunter stopped fighting. The commander stepped backward. It cannot be. The Moonchild. Ancient legends spoke of a child born from a rejected mate bond, a child whose existence could heal kingdoms divided by hatred. Most believed the stories were myths. They were wrong, far away, inside the royal capital. The great temple bells rang by themselves. Priests abandoned their ceremonies. High elders rushed toward the sacred observatory. The crystal of the first alpha glowed brighter than ever recorded. Elder Morkant collapsed into his chair. No. The prophecy was never about destruction. He finally understood the truth he had hidden for years. He had altered the ancient prophecy, not because it spoke of a curse, because it promised something he feared more. A queen chosen by compassion instead of bloodline. Lord Kalen slammed both fists onto the council table. Enough prophecies. I want the girl. Send every remaining hunter. Back at the sanctuary, the Brotherhood commander raised one final black crystal. If we cannot capture her, we destroy everything. Dark shadows burst from the crystal. The forest turned cold. Trees withered where the darkness touched. Even sunlight disappeared. Children screamed. The wolves growled. Elara instinctively shielded Lyra. Orion stepped in front of both of them. His wound reopened. Blood stained his shirt. He never moved. The mate bond blazed like fire. Every heartbeat echoed through the valley. His wolf no longer fought only for a kingdom. It fought for its family. Silver light answered. The entire forest erupted with thousands of glowing wolf spirits emerging from between ancient trees. Guardian wolves, older than kingdoms, older than kings. They surrounded Orion. They surrounded Elara. They surrounded Lyra. The Brotherhood realized too late. They had not hunted the Alpha Child. They had walked into the sacred sanctuary protected by the first wolves themselves, and the moon had finally chosen a side. The first guardian wolf moved without making a sound. Its silver form crossed the battlefield like flowing moonlight. The black shadows released from the crystal never reached the frightened children. They dissolved the instant the ancient wolf passed through them. Another guardian emerged, then another. Soon dozens of luminous wolves stood between Willow Sanctuary and the Brotherhood of the Crimson Fang. The forest itself had answered the moon's call. Every tree seemed taller. Every breeze carried silver light. The assassins hesitated for the first time. Their commander tightened his grip upon the cracked crystal. Hold your ground. No spirit can stop determined men, he charged. The Brotherhood followed. The valley erupted once more. Orion stepped forward. Blood soaked the fresh bandages beneath his torn shirt. But he ignored the pain. His silver eyes never left the attackers advancing toward Lyra. Every instinct inside him spoke only one command. Protect your daughter. The realization filled him with both strength and unbearable sorrow. For 8 years she had laughed, fallen, learned, dreamed. He had missed every moment, not because fate had stolen them, because fear had. He refused to lose another second. A hunter lunged with a silver spear. Orion twisted aside. The spear struck empty air. One precise movement sent the weapon spinning harmlessly into the grass. Another attacker swung an enchanted blade. Captain Rowan intercepted it. Royal guards pressed forward, forming a living shield around the sanctuary. No one fought recklessly. Every strike carried purpose. Every defense protected another life. Behind the battle, Ilara hurried among the wounded. She wrapped injuries, mixed healing herbs, comforted terrified children. She never asked who belonged to which kingdom. Pain had no borders. Compassion needed none. Little Rowan clung to her dress. "Are we going to die?" She gently touched his cheek. "Not while we stand together." Lyra knelt beside another frightened child whose ankle had been twisted while running. "It hurts. I know," Lyra smiled softly. "My mother says brave people are allowed to cry." The younger child nodded through tears. Across the battlefield, the Brotherhood commander finally reached Orion. Steel collided against steel, again, again, again. Each impact echoed through the valley. Neither man spoke. Neither needed to. One fought for power, the other fought for family. The difference became obvious with every exchange. The commander's movements slowly grew desperate. Orion's became calmer, stronger, clearer. At last, the commander attempted one final strike, aimed past Orion toward Lyra. The king moved instantly. His sword knocked the attack aside. His shoulder struck the assassin squarely in the chest. The commander crashed backward across the earth. His weapon landed several feet away. He reached for another dagger before he could grasp it. A guardian wolf calmly placed one enormous silver paw upon the blade. The assassin looked up. The ancient spirit simply watched him. No growl, no attack, only silent judgment. The commander's courage disappeared. He lowered his head. Royal guards secured him without resistance. The remaining Brotherhood members slowly dropped their weapons. The battle ended, but the truth had only begun. Hooves thundered from the eastern road. A royal carriage entered the clearing, surrounded by temple knights. Lord Kalen stepped out wearing ceremonial armor instead of battle gear. He smiled as though arriving at a celebration. "You disappoint me, Commander." The prisoner glared upward. "You promised reinforcements." "I promised results." Kalen looked toward Lyra. "I can still achieve them." Before anyone reacted, he revealed a hidden crossbow beneath his cloak. Its enchanted bolt flew toward the little girl. Orion was too far away. Captain Rowan was blocked by wounded soldiers. Everything seemed to stop. Ilara stepped between the bolt and her daughter. The arrow never reached her. Silver light burst from Lyra's small hands. The enchanted projectile froze in midair. Not broken, simply suspended. The forest fell completely silent. Old Miriam whispered with trembling lips, "The moon's blessing." Lyra stared at the floating bolt in confusion. "I did not." She had never used magic before. She did not understand what had happened. Neither did Orion. The guardian wolves lowered their heads toward the child. Not in submission, in recognition. Lord Kalen staggered backward. "No, that power belongs only to the first bloodline," old Miriam answered quietly. "Exactly." Temple knights surrounded the nobleman. He reached for another weapon. Captain Rowan stopped him first. "The battle is over." Kalen laughed bitterly. "You still believe the throne belongs to him." High Elder Cedric stepped from the carriage carrying an ancient scroll sealed with silver wax. "I do." Every eye turned toward the elderly scholar. I searched the first archive after the sacred bells awakened. He carefully opened the brittle parchment. The original prophecy was never destroyed, he read aloud. When the rejected mate chooses mercy instead of vengeance, her child shall unite what fear divided, and the Alpha who kneels before love shall preserve the kingdom. Silence swept across the valley. Elder Morcant arrived moments later under heavy guard. His shoulders had collapsed beneath the weight of his own guilt. I changed the prophecy. His confession barely rose above a whisper. I feared the old bloodlines would lose their influence. He looked toward Orion. I convinced you her blood was cursed. Then toward Ilara. I condemned an innocent woman. Finally, toward Lyra. I stole a father from his daughter. No one answered. Some crimes required no argument, only truth. Temple guards escorted both Morcant and Kalin into custody. They offered no resistance. They no longer possessed anything worth defending. Orion slowly walked across the quiet battlefield. Blood covered his hands, his clothes, his face. His wounds had reopened during the fighting. Yet he noticed none of it. His eyes remained fixed upon Ilara. She stood beneath the great willow tree, surrounded by children she had protected for years. She looked exactly as she had on the day he rejected her. Only stronger. He stopped a few steps away, without removing his crown. Without speaking another word. Alpha King Orion Ashenfang slowly lowered himself onto both knees. The valley held its breath. A king had never knelt before a common healer. Blood dripped from his fingertips onto the roots of the ancient willow. His voice trembled. I believed fear instead of truth. I chose pride instead of trust. I abandoned the woman the moon had chosen. He looked toward Lyra. And I abandoned the child who deserved her father. Tears filled his silver eyes. I cannot reclaim the years I stole. I cannot erase the loneliness you carried. He bowed his head. But if forgiveness is something that must be earned, I will spend every remaining day of my life earning it. The children watched in complete silence. Captain Rowan lowered his sword. Even the guardian wolves remained perfectly still. Ilara stepped forward. She gently lifted Orion's chin. Her touch was as gentle as it had always been. I cannot change yesterday, she whispered. Neither can you. A single tear slipped down her cheek. But our daughter still deserves tomorrow. She reached for his hand, not because destiny demanded it, because she chose it. Sut them, every guardian wolf bowed together. The entire sanctuary followed, not to a crown, not to a king, but to the family that compassion had rebuilt. The first sunrise after the battle arrived without the sound of war. Golden light filtered through the towering pines surrounding Willow Sanctuary. For the first time in many years, every child stepped outside without looking over a frightened shoulder. The forest felt different, lighter, as though it had been waiting for this morning. The ancient willow tree stood at the center of the sanctuary, its silver leaves shimmering beneath the fading moon. High Elder Cedric approached, carrying an object wrapped in white linen. Behind him walked the royal council, Captain Rowan, queen mothers from neighboring kingdoms, and hundreds of wolves who had traveled through the night after hearing of the miracle in the forest. No army marched beside them, only witnesses. Cedric unfolded the linen carefully. Resting inside was the crown of the first Luna, unlike every royal crown crafted for queens of noble birth. This one was woven from living silver branches, shaped like intertwined moonvines. It has never belonged to blood, Cedric announced. It has always belonged to sacrifice. Silence settled across the sanctuary. Ilara stepped forward wearing the same simple healer's dress she had worn for years. She had refused silk. She had refused jewels. I healed children as a healer. She smiled toward the orphans gathered beneath the willow. I will protect them exactly the same as your Luna. Lyra proudly slipped her small hand into Orion's. This time, he never let go. Orion faced the gathered kingdoms. Years ago, I rejected the woman chosen by the moon because I allowed fear to become louder than truth. He looked toward Elara. My greatest failure became the greatest lesson of my life. He turned back toward the crowd. From this day forward, no child will be judged by bloodline. No healer will be silenced by superstition. No family will be separated by deception while I wear this crown. As Elara placed one hand upon the ancient willow, soft silver light surrounded her. The crown of the first Luna slowly rose into the air. Every wolf bowed. The crown settled gently upon Elara's head. The willow blossomed instantly. Thousands of silver leaves drifted through the sanctuary like glowing snow. The moon goddess had spoken without a single word. Lyra's crescent birthmark glowed softly before fading into her skin once more. High Elder Cedric smiled. Princess Lyra Ashenfang, the rightful daughter of the Alpha King and the true Luna. The gathered wolves erupted into joyful howls that echoed across the mountains. Orion knelt beside his daughter, not as the king, as a father. I cannot give you back the years I missed. Lyra wrapped both arms around his neck. You came home. That is enough. Tears filled Orion's eyes as he embraced the little girl who had unknowingly saved both his life and his soul. Around, the orphaned children laughed together. None would ever be without a family again. Willow Sanctuary would become a royal refuge, protected equally by every allied kingdom, ensuring that compassion, not fear, would shape the next generation, and perhaps that became the greatest victory of all. Before this story ends, let us ask one final question. If you had been Elara, could you have forgiven the Alpha King who rejected you, knowing his mistake stole 8 precious years from your daughter's childhood? Share your answer in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, please like this video. Share it with someone who loves unforgettable werewolf romance stories, and subscribe for more epic tales of destiny, redemption, and families chosen by the moon. Until our next story, may courage always be stronger than fear, and may love always find its way home.